Hello everyone, and welcome to Film Etc., the only movie review podcast you need in life. My name is Mike Webb, I'll be your host, and this is my review of the latest film from A24 called Everything Everywhere All at Once. Now, if you guys are going into this review not knowing anything about it, I suggest you pause this episode right now, go to the movies, see Everything Everywhere All at Once, come back to this review, and hear my thoughts on this, because what I'm going to tell you sounds completely insane, to say the least. In case you guys are new to the show, I basically review the new releases of the week, or used to, but it's just now down to just one movie per episode, and I grade them on a number scale from 0 to 10. But without further ado, let's get to my review of Everything Everywhere All at Once. Now, before we get into this review, I must cap you off with a warning. If you guys are new to the show, or if this is your first time, or if you need a little bit of refresher, I am diagnosed with autism, so you may hear my wording get jumbled up a bit. So I hope you all forgive me, and I hope you all enjoy. Everything Everywhere All at Once is the sophomore effort from the writing-directing duo of Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert, known together collectively as Daniels. They previously made their feature film debut with the 2016 film Swiss Army Man, starring Paul Dano and Daniel Radcliffe. The film stars Michelle Yeoh as Evelyn Wang, an aging Chinese immigrant who runs a laundromat, which is being audited by the IRS. She is then swept up in an insane adventure where she alone can save the world by exploring other universes connecting with the lives she could have led. Unfortunately, this sweeps her into a bigger adventure when she finds herself lost in the infinite worlds of the multiverse. The film also stars Stephanie Hsu, Huy Quan, Jenny Slate, Shum Jr., James Hong, and Jamie Lee Curtis. Now, before I go any further, if you are taking your kids to this movie, do not. This is R-rated. This is more for adults in general. There's going to be some things that are going to be like completely shocking for your kids, I will say. Now, the style of the directing duo of the Daniels is what I would call outrageously audacious. Before their feature filmmaking career, they were best known for directing music videos. But they're not like the first ones. There are other people like David Fincher and Mark Romanek. Those are like the ones that are like coming out of the top of my head right now. And Spike Jonze as well. They're best known for directing music videos. Michel Gondry. But the Daniels were making music videos for artists like Foster the People, Passion Pit, and even Tenacious D, Jack Black's rock band with Kyle Gass. But the Daniels are perhaps best remembered for the music video of the EDM song "Turn Down for What" by DJ Snake and Lil Jon, which I gotta tell you, it is freakishly bizarre. I first saw the video, I was a senior in high school, so I was a little bit busy, but it was like during a field trip, and one of the students had it on, and they just like turned it off about halfway through because it was just so bizarre. But I did watch the rest of it, and I don't want to give too much away, but if you have not watched it, just go on YouTube, just look up "Turn Down for What," and you're gonna be completely shocked at this video. And because the music video was so popular, they made their feature film debut in 2016 with the film Swiss Army Man, which is about a man, played by Paul Dano, who is on a deserted island about to commit suicide, but then sees a corpse washed up ashore. The corpse is played by Daniel Radcliffe, but the corpse is not entirely dead and somehow they form a friendship, and they're trying to get back to civilization because because Daniel Radcliffe's character is unlike any other character. It's a very weird movie. I mean, I like it fine in general, but based on the reviews I'm hearing from Everything Everywhere All at Once, I should probably rewatch it at some point in life. And in between this and their new movie, co-director Daniel Scheinert made his solo directorial debut with the 2019 dark comedy drama The Death of Dick Long, which is also a fine movie, but also weird. It plays out kind of like a Coen Brothers knockoff. And now we've come to their latest endeavor, Everything Everywhere All at Once, which I have to say, it is wacky, weird, wild, bonkers, nutty, zany, and also universally heartfelt, which is completely surprising. Now, I was very fortunate to see this movie in IMAX, and it is amazing to see it on the big screen. And it's very rare for an A24 film. By the way, if you guys never heard of A24, they're probably the biggest indie studio with a cult following since Miramax in the 80s and 90s. Some people in the 80s and 90s are like, oh, hey, it's the new Miramax film. people nowadays be like, oh, it's the new A24 film. A24 is like driven to like hear like new and up and coming filmmakers like tell their voices and make like bold risks to put out there. They're responsible for movies like Lady Bird, Room with Brie Larson, The Disaster Artist, Hereditary, the Oscar-winning Moonlight, a lot of movies that they've made. They've also made some of my favorite movies of the past few years, namely The Farewell, Minari, and Come On, which nobody saw last year, which I'm devastated. But A24 has produced all of the Daniels' work thus far, and they have co produced it with Joe and Anthony Russo, or also known as the Russo brothers. They were the directors of the Captain America sequels, as well as Avengers Infinity War and Endgame. They have their own production company called Agbo, and they've produced movies that are like outside of the superhero realm, including 21 Bridges, starring the late Chadwick Boseman. They produced Extraction with Chris Hemsworth, which set a big record viewership on Netflix, and Cherry, starring Tom Holland, which I wasn't a huge fan of. But having those three combined just went into like something completely unexpected and extraordinary. And Everything Everywhere All at Once shows. But yeah, saw it in IMAX. It was amazing. Although I do need to rewatch it though, so that I could get a better understanding. This review that you're hearing right now, it's coming from my first viewing, and that's the number. It could change towards the end of the year, I will say. But yeah, yeah, saw it in IMAX. And What's funny is that a close friend of mine was at that same showing as well, and we didn't even know we were there until afterwards. I just told him, I was like, I was there. And then he said to me, huh, that's funny. I wish I could have seen you there. I was like, yeah, we could have like talked this over and how we felt about the movie and everything. But yeah. Anyway, with all that out of the way, let me give you my whole thoughts on Everything Everywhere All at Once. I have never seen a film that's quite daring, playful, and also full of originality. Like at first, you think it's going to play like this slice of life drama, but then it quickly turns into this wildly audacious roller coaster that the Daniels set up. You get Michelle Yeoh playing this laundromat owner who's struggling at life in general. Her daughter Joy, played by Stephanie Hsu, wants to bring her girlfriend to the family. Her husband Wayman, played by Huy Quan, wants a divorce. Her father from China is living with the family. This is James Hong's character, and her laundromat is being audited by the IRS because they filed their taxes wrong, and they have a meeting with the and they have a meeting at the IRS building with an auditor. She's played by Jamie Lee Curtis. And while that's happening, Wayman tells Evelyn that he is not really her husband, but is instead another version of himself from another universe. He then tells her there's a multiverse and is being destroyed by this evil cult figure known as Jobu Tupaki, who is inhabiting the body of her teenage daughter, and it's up to her to stop it. He gives her these like Bluetooth headsets to help her what's called verse jumping into different universes, and then she can use the skills and emotions and all that other stuff, and the different versions of herself could have been the lives she would have had. Like in one universe, she's basically Michelle Yeoh, and she's like this famous like martial arts movie star, and in another universe she's a teppanyaki chef. And then there are other universes that are somewhat out of whack. Like in one universe she has fingers the size of hot dogs. Like everyone has fingers the size of hot dogs, and it's really weird. And in another universe she's a rock. And believe me, all of this sounds completely ridiculous on paper, but it actually works when you watch the final product. And some people are easily calling this the best movie of the year, even the decade already. And the year isn't even over yet. Even since the release, it has dethroned Parasite as the highest rated film on Letterboxd, and it could wind up being on IMDb's top 250 rated movies of all time, probably in like the top 10, I would say, which is saying something. Now, Michelle Yeoh has had an illustrious career, but here she gives what will be her all time best. I mean, we usually associate Yeoh as a martial arts action star from her roles in Super Cop to Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon to more recently in Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, even though she had a small role. But more recently, she's been transitioning, at least in Hollywood, more of ranging outside the genre, like Crazy Rich Asians or Last Christmas. During pre-production, the Daniels originally wanted Jackie Chan for the role, but then they rewrote the role to a woman, just so that they can thank the just so that the husband wife dynamic in the story can be more relatable. And when thinking about who to play, they wanted Yo, but they were so worried about that idea she was probably going to reject the role. But while reading the script, she was like, finally, someone gets me. And she wanted to prove herself that she can do more than just being typecast as the global martial arts star she's known for. And because there's so much going on in this movie, she had to put a lot of sticky tabs all over the script just so that she can remember what scene, what universe they were going to shoot that day. The whole cast is great, not just Yo, but also Huy Quan, who many of you know as either Short Round in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom or Data in the Goonies. He was a former child actor, but he hasn't acted in nearly 2 decades. And some of you may be asking, where he has he been all this time? Well, I watched an interview where he took a break from acting. He didn't quit entirely. It's just when he got older, there weren't many roles out there for him. And so he decided to work behind the scenes. He was an assistant fight chore. He was an assistant on the fight choreography for the first X-Men film. He was an assistant director on Wong Kar-wai's 2046. It wasn't until he watched Crazy Rich Asians that he decided he wanted to get back into acting. And he's terrific as Yo's husband in this movie. Like there's a couple scenes where he could be charming, and then there's like one sequence like midway through the film where he's very suave, kind of like reminiscent of Tony Leung in Wong Kar-wai's In the Mood for Love. Yeah, the whole cast is terrific. I don't know too much about Stephanie Hsu, but this role was originally offered to Aquafina, but dropped out due to scheduling conflicts. But Stephanie Hsu playing these characters, she does it in a very fascinating way. Like she could be snarky and also be a little mean to her mother throughout, and she even plays the role of the cult leader Jobu Tupaki. And throughout this movie, uh, her character goes through a lot of clothing like every 5 seconds because she just verse jumps a lot, and she appears in like a different outfit while like fighting other people. Jamie Lee Curtis is having the best time of her life. She gives a very showy and very physical performance as this IRS auditor named Deidre Bobidra. And there's even a point like where she's in another universe where she plays Michelle Yeoh's lover. And I don't have much to say about Jamie Lee Curtis other than the fact that she is the Jamie Lee Curtis. James Hong is wonderful as always. He is 93 years old and still working to this very day. He is a legend. You may know him from movies like The Sand Pebbles, to Chinatown, to Airplane, to Blade Runner, to Big Trouble in Little China, to his voiceover roles in 1998's Mulan, to the Kung Fu Panda trilogy, to more recently with Pixar's Turning Red. He's been working since the 1950s, has over 400 credits on IMDb, and is getting a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame later this year. And even his role in this film is going to be remembered as well for playing Michelle Yeoh's father. Aside from the performances, there's a lot to say about everything else. I'm even blurting out part of the title, which is insane. The craftsmanship in this movie is beyond new levels, not just from the Daniels direction or script. Like they're all going for it. There's a lot of movie references here. It borrows a lot of stuff from films like The Matrix or the Jet Li movie The One, which is funny because Huy Quan was an assistant on that movie. There's even a parody to a certain Pixar film. I won't say which though, because that would be considered a spoiler. It is outrageously hilarious. The jokes and gags can range from simple to extreme. Again, this is an R-rated movie, so there's a little bit of raunchiness in there. The choreography is incredibly insane. You get action sequences where a character uses a fanny pack. There's one fight sequence set on a flight of stairs, to even one where they use Jamie Lee Curtis's character's trophies and how it's being used as. And oh boy, the editing is super frenetic. It has a nice score from the experimental band Sunlocks. I even saw a video where there were only 5 people who worked on the film's visual effects overall, which is nuts. Just 5 people, which is insane. Even aside from all the crazy shenanigans this movie goes through, you also have some calmer sequences, like the one sequence where they're at a movie premiere, but then Michelle Yeoh and Huy Kwan's character go out into an alleyway, and it's beautifully shot. You see all these green hues of light just bursting into the frame. That sequence alone is literally something out of a Wong Kar-wai movie. The film has a very strong theme about family, and it gives Yeoh's character the feeling of guilt and has the fear of not being loved and cherished by her other family members enough. I even heard from people on social media after they watched this movie, it made them want to call their loved ones, more specifically their parents. And I would feel a little guilty about that because I did call my mom after the movie was over. This would oddly also make an interesting double feature with Pixar's Turning Red, except you would have to put this movie on second. The movie also deals with themes of existentialism, nihilism, and Asian American identity. And I think it handled all three of those themes very, very well. I don't have too many flaws with this movie. But my biggest critique on this is the film's running time. It's about 2 hours and 20 minutes in length, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, the great film critic Roger Ebert once said, "No good movie is long, no bad one's short either." But the running time on this, it's divided into three parts. And the first part takes up the majority of the film's runtime, like about 90 minutes, I would say. But then once part two and part three start rolling along, you just have like 45 minutes left of movie. So just be prepared that exactly 2/3 of this movie you're going to experience is just like the big like setup. Other than that, I've had a total blast watching it. It'd be interesting to see what the Daniels do next, although I still need to rewatch their previous works just to see where I fall on their material overall. I would love to see whatever Stephanie Hsu does next. Michelle Yeoh is great, Huy Quan is great, and speaking about multiverse movies, we do have Doctor Strange 2 coming up, as well as a sequel to Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse called Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. And that sequel is going to be a two-parter, but good luck because now Everything Everywhere All at Once has just set a new template for the multiverse movie and all that stuff. Even though I still think Into the Spider-Verse is still a really good movie, I think in terms of like live action, even though we've also had Spider-Man No Way Home recently, I think Everything Everywhere All at Once has again just set a new template for the multiverse. One last thing, it's a little too early to call awards prospects, but I highly doubt that this movie is going to be completely forgotten by next year's award seasons. But I'd be shocked if either Michelle Yeoh or Huy Quan doesn't get nominated for acting. I could see the Daniels get in for screenplay, but directing is kind of a long shot, and some other technical categories as well. But anyway, guys, those are my thoughts on Everything Everywhere All at Once. It is now playing in theaters basically everywhere, and I'm going to give it an 8.8 out of 10. I would like to rewatch it one day just to get some second thoughts on it there. So yeah, let's end this show and call it a day. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed my review of Everything Everywhere All at Once. Were you weirded out by it? Were you moved by it? Let me know. I am on social media at Real Mike Webb on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. You can also follow the show on Instagram at FilmETCcast. Stay right there because I'm going to have more reviews coming really, really soon, including the new Nicolas Cage movie, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. In the meantime, guys, you can follow the show on all the many platforms that the show is streaming, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, you name it. Please leave a good rating, leave a 5-star review on our Apple Podcast page. That'll help get the show up to the top of the charts. Thanks again for listening. Stay safe, and until next time, I will see you all at the cinema.